Hi everybody, Lee at Signs Now headquarters back with the second of a series of videos, advanced path operations from within Illustrator, specifically how we can do path operations with respect to print and cut operations. So in front of us I have a logo you've all seen, Signs Now logo. If I were to print this and cut this, it would be very simple. What I could do is just assign a stroke here of, of my cut contour, and it would cut right on the edge. If I wanted to do something just a little bit more, I could actually create a quick bleed. Right, I could bleed this, send it to the back. Alright, that's a really ugly version of it, but you can see that what's happening there is that I'm printing beyond where I cut, and then I'm actually going to cut the gold ring to the exact shape, just to make sure I don't end up with a little edge of white there. Okay, that's great. It's really simple. But what happens when I have a logo like this, right? I mean, how do I handle something like this? Typically, we're not going to be cutting right to the very edge of each complex shape when it's a logo of this magnitude. Typically, what we're going to do is what I like to call a cloud cut. So we're going to come off of the logo a little bit and just put a loose line around it that's actually going to be cut. It's going to be white or whatever color we want, maybe the wall color if it's going on a wall. So the way we do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, and on this layer I can call it whatever I want. I'll call it cut line. All right. And I'm going to select everything in this file and copy it, and then I'm going to paste in front. What I've just done there is created a duplicate copy of all of my artwork. I have placed it directly in front of the artwork that's already there. Now what I can do is I can come over here to layer 1, and you see this little square here. That means that my selection is now entirely on layer 1. If I had more layers and I had more objects in there, then I would have squares on all of these, and I would just keep doing what I'm about to do. And that is to take this square and move it to the cut line layer. You can see now that all of my edges change to red, reflecting the fact that I'm on this red cut line layer, right, rather than the blue layer 1. Again, if I had other layers, then I would come down here, drag it up to cut line, next one, drag it up to cut line. At this point, I can turn layer 1 off, and I'm left only with what's on this layer. Now, we already covered the Pathfinder. The very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object, Path, make sure that I outline stroke. Just in case there are any strokes in here, I want to make sure that those are outlined before we start working on this, because it will affect the final product. I'll make sure that everything is selected again by going to Select All. Now I'm going to join everything together. It's just easier for me working on something that's one solid color, and I think you'll find that it's easier for you as well. So now what I have is actually the shape of my artwork. All right, I could cut this at this point, use this as my cut file, and it would cut right to the edge, but I think you can see just looking at it, that's not something that I would necessarily want to cut, weed, tape, apply, anything. So the next thing I'm going to do is, again, I'll select everything. So here's another path operation, and this is Object, Path, and we're going to choose Offset Path. And what Offset Path is going to do is it's going to expand the perimeter of each of my shapes by however much I put in here. Now I have a few different options for joins. I prefer round. It makes it easier to work with. It's easier to cut. But your preference, you can see what they do. If you just click on Preview, we can see how much it's expanding it. Maybe I say 0.2 isn't quite small enough. I want something a little thinner. Maybe I'll do 0.15, and you can see everything shrunk in a little bit. And I'll decide maybe that's enough, and so I'll hit OK. Very next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select all again, and then in the Pathfinder, I'm going to click this. All right. So now I have my one shape that's going to be cut. Next thing I probably want to do is zoom in on this nice and close, and with this tool right here, the white arrow with the plus on it, which is the group selection tool, I just might want to maybe click any items that I might decide I just want to keep them in there just for sanity's sake. You know, maybe this guy right here. And I'm not sure about these yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back in the layers. I'm going to select everything in my artwork and I'm going to make it my cut color. All right. Make it a spot color. Now if I go back over to layers, bring cut line to the bottom so it's underneath my art. Now I can turn my art on and I can see everywhere that I'm going to have finished product. And I might decide, you know what, on this, I want to keep these. I don't want to cut individual spaces right there because it's really inside my art. You know, this is a handle, but this is kind of inside my art, so I might decide to keep that as part of the artwork and not cut it. And I can turn that on and off and see actually where all of my cuts are going to be. All right. And at this point I can go ahead and save my file however I need to create my cut lines. Whatever software you prefer, you can use that, whether it be selecting everything in the cut line and turning it into a stroke. I personally prefer a fill so that I can see it. But you can go ahead and do that and then actually print your file, do what you need to, cut it out, and you know that you'll have a nice looking path on there. We'll get rid of that too. So I hope this has been instructional for you, and as I said in the last video, if you have any questions at all about what you've seen, you know where to find me.